Today on Hands on Photography, I'm joined by an amazing food and beverage photographer, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how we can make your shots look even better just by checking out some of the technical aspects of your lighting. I cannot wait to share this conversation with you. It's Mr. Freddy Clark.
This is TWiT.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and this is Hands on Photography here on TWiT TV. I hope y'all are doing well. I am unbelievable as always, and if it looks like I'm glowing a little bit, then yeah, I am, because today I am joined by an amazing photographer yet again, and he's going to drop some knowledge on us just to help you continue to get better with your photography and post-processing and all of that stuff in this wonderful art that we do. But before we get into that, I want to say welcome to everybody that is brand new and checking out the show for the very first time. Welcome to you. Thank you for hopping on in. Go ahead and do me a favor. Hit subscribe in whatever podcast application you're enjoying this on. That way it'll help grow our hands-on photography community. And especially if you're using Apple Podcasts, Apple will start to recommend this show to other people out there. So go ahead and push us up so we can continue to grow this here show and grow the community. I appreciate all of that. But if you have any other questions about our subscription options or previous episodes, just go to the website, twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP for hands-on photography. And you'll see all of our subscription options and previous episodes and notes over there. So now let's go ahead and get started with this week's show. Oh my goodness, my man, the wonderful food and beverage photographer, Mr. Freddy Clark. How you doing, sir?
I am doing great, Ant. Thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, I'm glad to have you here. I've been wanting to reach out to you and pick your brain because a lot of times when I'm looking at your work on Twitter or Instagram, most of the time I'm kicking myself because on a previous episode of Hands on Photography, I spoke about doing food and beverage photography because, quite frankly, I think anybody can do it. It just takes some patience. It just takes a little bit of thought process to sort of walk through it. I mean, we did an episode about it. I don't have it on top of my head, but I know Mr. Victor will pull it up on the screen right about now because he's so good like that. But we did talk about it, and I walked everybody through just setting up a simple scene. I ended up shooting some bourbon, I believe is what it was. And I had a big old window right there because it was beautiful, natural light. And it came out pretty good. It didn't come out Freddy Clark good, but it came out pretty
I'm an adjective now. That's fantastic. And I've seen your work, and it's look, beverage can be very challenging because of light reflecting and refracting off of everything.
Right.
And what I will tell you is, I will never show you my early stuff because it was terrible. So it was, what you did was way better than when I started out doing it, my first few attempts, because it was awful. And I think that's part of being a photographer is don't share the crap, right? You hide stuff, and you bury it, and you never open that safe ever. But thank you. I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. And look, natural light is a great way to start. I mean, that's, the problem becomes with natural light is you run out of natural light, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
It doesn't always stick around. And maybe depending on where you live or where your studio is or where you're shooting, you only may have a window of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours where you have that really nice natural light.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's, well, what do I do now?
Right.
And that's where the trick comes in. And that's why, like whenever I teach, I tell people, do not fear the flash,
right? Because
it can totally be your friend. And that's the trick for, I guess for what you called the Freddy Clark thing. I do most of my stuff where I shoot. I don't have great natural light.
Right.
So it became, if I want to shoot, I got to learn. I got to get good with flash.
Right.
And whether it's speed lights or studio lights, that's what I needed to develop and work on.
Now, regarding flash, so what is your preference? Or do you prefer using a speed light, or do you prefer using, monolights? Because I'm sort of a mixed bag when it comes to those, because they both have their own specific use cases, and one's a little bit better than others depending on the scenario. But sometimes I find myself just gravitating towards one of these little tiny speed lights, because it is pretty powerful and it literally fits in the palm of my hand. What are your thoughts?
And there's nothing wrong with them. Look, I came out of, when I started doing this, when I started really focusing on the beverage and the food stuff, I mean, I'd come out of being, doing portraiture, doing weddings. So I had speed lights. That's what I had. I'm a Canon shooter. I had the Canon speed lights. So I started with them, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And I use them from time to time still for certain scenarios. What they are great for is they have a great, nice short flash duration.
Right.
So if you're going to do stuff like the splash work, you can really freeze a droplet of water, bourbon, beer, and air, milk, whatever, and really freeze that with a speed light a lot easier than you can with most of the other monolights.
Nice.
Right now I'm using Einstein's pretty much predominantly. And they have a nice short duration too. But other than them, to get into that short duration speed, you might have to go pro photo, spend $5,000. And, that's out of the ballpark for most people, right?
Yeah, so those B1s and B10s, those things can get quite pricey. But boy, do they look great.
they do look great. But I know if I come home with $20,000 worth of lights, I'm going to be sleeping in the doghouse out back. So, that's not something I'm going to do right now. But they have, the speed lights are great. The only thing that is difficult about the speed lights is that they are a small source, right? That source of light is this big, right? It's tiny. And put it in front of a bottle, put it in front of a glass, and you're going to drive yourself nuts with those highlights, those specular highlights. So that's the tricky part, right? So like anything with flash, right, or any light source, the bigger the light, the closer the light, the softer the light you're going to get, right? I don't care what kind of photography you do, that holds true.
That's right.
So the whole trick is going to be then, how do I make that light source, whatever I may have, whether it's a speed light or an Einstein, how do I make that as big as possible in relation to my subject? And that's where you get that's where the fun part kicks in. That's where the massaging kicks in, right? So you've got to get to the point where you can diffuse that source a lot. So even with even with my Einsteins, right? When I'm shooting, I have an Einstein in a strip box, which has basically two baffles. The Einstein has the frosted cup over the flash. So there's one layer of diffusion, two layers of diffusion, 3 layers, right? And then I take a piece of diffusion material like the Lee diffuser, and I put that and lay a sheet across that between my light and my subject. So now I'm up to 4 levels of diffusion, and to get that wraparound look that I like.
Right. So even with all of that diffusion, the next question that most beginners are going to have is the power to push the light through that diffusion. What are your thoughts on that? What are some of your go-to tips regarding power with all of this diffusion?
I'll be honest. I usually, when I start lighting a scene, I start at full power on my lights.
Okay.
And then back it down from there. Right. So, and I'm also not afraid of bumping up my ISO anymore. A few years ago, I probably would have said, well, like when I was on a Canon 5D Mark II, I never really liked to go much above 8, maybe 1200 ISO and stop there. Yeah. But I will now with the Mark IV, I will bump up the ISO if I need to. Usually I don't have to, once in a blue moon. But I'll start at 100%. On my light and then back it down. And then if I feel like I'm really stuck, then I'll bring up the ISO if I feel like even 100% is not enough.
The thing is, the ISO today is not the same way it was 10 years ago. from a processing standpoint on these cameras. There are times when I'm shooting ISO 3200 and don't even bat an eye at it. Just do it.
Exactly. So do not be afraid of that. Look, so it's all about, once you get that diffusion down, and then the angle of the light coming across, and that's the key part. And if you have to bring up the whole scene with ISO, I'm all for that. Not afraid of that at all.
Now, with your flash setup, are you particularly just on camera? Is it all off camera? Is it a combination of both of them? Or
if I could go back in time and find the first engineer who put a hot shoe flash right on top of the camera and just shake that person and say, no, don't do that. That's the first place for it. And that's the part that I think scares a lot of people is you get that. You put the flash on the camera, you take the shot, it looks terrible, and your first inclination is, oh, I don't know what I'm doing with
I can't use flash.
Can't use flash, right? Because it looks terrible. Yes, I don't care who you are. You put a flash, put it in the hands of Ansel Adams, and it would have looked terrible then too.
Mm-hmm.
Get it off the camera, right? Bring that light for food, for still life, for beverage work, for portraiture, anything. Get it off the camera and start to think about going from 90 degrees to your subject, or even 45 degrees behind your subject.
Ooh.
And that's how you begin to light it, right?
Hold on, I'm taking notes here. These are some good notes here, and boy, I cannot wait to apply this knowledge.
Okay. So cross light, especially with the beverage stuff, and you want to outline, you want to get the curvature of the bottle or the curvature of the glass,
right?
90 or further back, 45. And for food, one light behind, maybe at 45 or some angle like that, and coming across the food. And if you have to, then kick a little bit more light in, even with a reflector even.
Mm-hmm.
But get it to the sides. And the other trick that people don't think about a lot is do not aim your flash directly at the subject. Right. So even if it's at the side, right, the nicer lights off of a softbox or a strip box are going to be at the sides. They're not going to be coming right out of the center. Mm-hmm. And everybody's first inclination is, I'm going to point the center of my modifier directly at my subject.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to give you the best light. Where if you move your angle, and so the edge of the strip box or soft box or whatever the modifier is grazing across the subject, that's going to give you a much nicer light than aiming it straight on. So what I usually will do with a setup is I start at about 45 degrees behind the subject,
mm-hmm.
aim, and then kind of kick my lights out a little bit. So my lights are almost facing me.
Mm-hmm.
In my shooting position, and just the edges of the light are kissing that bottle or kissing that glass, and then I'll fine tune from there. But that will give you the nicest, softest light coming across and hitting that subject.
Now I got a question. If the light is behind the subject at about 45 degrees and you're in front of the subject and you're shooting at full power here and there, maybe half power, so are you combating lens flare at that moment?
I am combating lens flare, and what I usually do is most of the time I have the baffle lens cover
mm-hmm.
that I use with my polarizers. So especially when you're shooting glass, polarization is totally your friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where because you can actually dial in, you get your lighting all set up, you get everything positioned, and then you can dial in exactly the type of light, the amount and the type of light you're getting on that subject, on that glass. Now the polarizer system that I use comes with a baffle lens cover
mm-hmm.
that pulls out. It's like an accordion. I don't remember the real. I'm sure it has a name, but it's a lens cover. It's a lens hood. That's probably the best one, lens hood.
Yeah.
The polarizer goes in, and then the lens hood is helping me control any stray light that might be hitting. And sometimes I have to adjust from there too of my lights. But that lens hood with the polarizer is really helping me cut down the unwanted light, and I'm just getting the light exactly where I want it, and it's not coming into the lens.
Oh my goodness. See, now I'm going to have to pick your brain and get that polarizer information from you. And as a matter of fact, we're just going to stick it in the show notes too and just say this is the polarizer that he's using.
I will. Yeah, it's a circular polarizer. I use the square system, the 100 millimeter system from Lee is what I use.
Sweet.
So we'll
and thinking about the flash, when you said that you'd like to shake the person that put the hot shoe on the top, it's I can only think of maybe 2 instances where I've used it up there. And one of them was just to show a demonstration on, how it is to move the light in a tutorial. Right. And that was it. Because otherwise, I think it's fairly useless. I think these right here are even better. A lot of the flashes come with these little feet or mounts or whatever. And they have a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom where you can mount it onto a tripod and put your flash on top of that somewhere in your scene to help light things up. And I think a lot of people overlook that. These are way more useful than you realize if you're only working with a speed light. But if you're working with a monolight or whatever, of course you better have some light stands for those.
But that and a $10 sync cable, right? That's all you need.
That's it.
You don't need to go wireless. You don't need to go radio. Just to get started, hot shoe, speed light, cable, that little shoe thing. You're all set.
Sweet.
You're all set.
Now, Mr. Clark, this has just been amazing as I expected, and just a lot of great information. Before we get out of here, is there anything else that you'd like to plug or share to see where we can find some of the other things that you're working on?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Sante Photo, SantePhoto. It's Sante is French for cheers. So that's Sante Photo on Instagram. My website is santephoto.com. And if we have a minute, there's something else I would like to talk about real quick.
Okay, do tell.
All right. So I am putting together a photography workshop for New Orleans in October. And we are going to have 3 instructors, myself plus 3 other instructors. And it is going to be a high-touch luxury workshop traveling around in New Orleans. We're there during Jazz Fest. And what we're going to be doing is talking about 3 basic sets of photography disciplines. Because New Orleans is such a great city, has such great history, and New Orleans is known for the people, of course, the amazing architecture, right? The amazing architecture, the amazing food, and the amazing music. So the whole premise of this workshop is to bring people to New Orleans, share those things with them, and also teach them how to do amazing concert photography, amazing music photography with our friend Steve Brazel.
I love Steve.
Steve's fantastic. Great food photography with someone who I admire greatly, a gentleman named Mr. Andrew Scrivani, and he has shot for the New York Times. He has shot cookbooks, and he's got a great book out there called That Photo Makes Me Hungry. He's going to be doing the food work. I'm going to be kind of like the cruise director on this, so I'll be teaching a little bit, but helping the other instructors out. And the one I'm very excited about joining us as well, handling like the street and the architecture, is none other than Mr. Ant Pruitt, who's going to be joining us and doing that piece of it. We're going to be in New Orleans for 5 days. We're going to have an amazing time. I've got things. We're going to do Jazz Fest is going on, so I'm going to try to get us into Jazz Fest. Steve is going to teach us. We're going to get a hall where Steve is going to teach. We're going to get restaurants where we're going to have room to ourselves where Andrew will teach. We've got historical tours, night tours of New Orleans where you'll be taking the lead, Ant. I'm working on some big surprises too that I don't want to give away yet.
Oh boy!
But yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. The website to find out more information, get all the details, is wanderersphoto.com, and you do a lower third thing, I hope, right?
Yeah, Mr. Victor got us covered.
Okay, excellent. Wanderersphoto.com, and it is my whole goal with this is to every person, both the participants and the instructors, to come out of this and go, this was the most amazing workshop that I've ever been on. And the most amazing place, the most amazing instructors, and just an experience like they've never had before.
You know, when you reached out to me, I was honored, just floored that you reached out to me. But what I want to really emphasize is what you mentioned was the hands-on, and it's going to be an intimate workshop. It's not just a sit down, here's how you line it up and shoot. This is going to be a lot more hands-on and more one-on-one with me and the other photographers, where we can really help you grow in this and get a lot better at this craft and have some fun with it in an amazing city. So thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that opportunity and this offer. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me. And just one to pick up on that a little bit more, even. One of the things I wanted to have was it's not just here's the instructor, they're teaching for 5 hours and then they go away. All the instructors are going to be interacting with everybody throughout the entire time we're in New Orleans. We're going to all have our meals all together. We're going to have like some roundtable discussions at different times, so you'll be walking down the street and, even if you had a question for Steve or Andrew, while we're walking down doing some architecture stuff, they'll be with us too at the same time. So it's going to be an intense, amazing learning experience. And like you said, in an amazing city.
I cannot wait. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Mr. Freddy. This has just been, another great episode, and I really do appreciate your time and all of this wonderful information.
Thank you for having me, Ant. I really appreciate it. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week. Man, are y'all fired up? Wipe the sweat off a little bit. Calm down. Whew, okay. Thank you all for joining us this week. Again, as usual, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to shoot me an email at hop@twit.tv. If you like to have some of your images critiqued or just have some general questions about a particular shot or framing or whatever, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. Again, that email address is hop@twit.tv. Or you can feel free to tag me on social media and give me a follow. And if you have questions there, I am Ant_Pruitt on Twitter, and I'm also Ant_Pruitt on Instagram. If you're following me over on Instagram, I tend to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, not just sharing my images. I like to share a bit of the process, as a matter of fact, I just recently shared how I set up for doing a show in there, just to let people know what all goes into doing my part, because we all know Mr. Victor is the main reason why I look and sound good. He knows it. But anyway, give me a follow over there. And again, thanks for all the support and continuing to share out the show. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like, share, subscribe, and all of that magical algorithmic stuff. All right, so catch us next week here on the network, twit.tv. Now you all safely create and dominate, and I'll catch you next time. Y'all take care.
Hey, if you like tech news, but you also like hearing about it from the people who are actually writing the stories, well, I've got a show for you. It's called Tech News Weekly, and it's me, Jason Howell, along with my co-host, Micah Sargent. Every week, we invite the people making and breaking the biggest tech news stories from around the web onto this show to talk to us about it. It's a lot of fun. You should check it out. Tech News Weekly can be found at twit.tv/TNW every Thursday. We'll see you there.